Yo, what up? How's it going? And welcome back for another video. In today's video, I will be giving you guys a complete augment guide for set 6. Now, the goal of this guide is to set you up to understand how to properly utilize each of the augments, at least from my perspective, for someone who has played every single day of PvE, and I just want to set you guys up for success. In this video, we'll be talking about a lot of strength of each augment in terms of when you get them throughout the game. If they're early game, if they're stronger in the early game, mid game, or late game. We'll go through them by tier. The goal of this video is to not tell you which augments are OP, because that is very subject to balance change. Even some of the information in these traits will be changed before we even go to live, and will change from patch to patch. But in general, the idea of how to utilize each augment shouldn't change with updates. In terms of whether they're good early game, mid game, or late game, with some tiny few exceptions, but it's incredibly complicated. The other thing we're not going to do in this video, and I just want to be upfront with this, is I'm not going to be doing like an OP combination, a synergistic combination of 3 augments. I might do like a few. I might talk about a little bit of synergies between augments, but that is like a whole nother 30 to an hour long video that I could talk about augment combination. So that is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here today is to jumpstart you guys, give you guys all the information you need on how to properly utilize each and every single augment. So we'll be going painstakingly through every augment. So let's just get right into it. So before we start talking about each of them, I want to tell you the rules of how the augments work. So currently right now, you get an augment at the beginning of stage 2 or the end of stage 1, whatever. Beginning of stage 2, the middle of stage 3, and the end of stage 4. Those are currently when you get augments. You're offered 3 augments each game, and that can be subject to change on which round you get it on. That's why we're not going to talk about rounds. But the idea is you'll have an early game, a mid game, and a late game augment that everyone will be offered. The other rule that you need to know about augments is that there are in tiers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, or silver, gold, and prismatic. As you can see on this website, some of them are changed because this is subject to change on like golden ticket could be like downgraded to augment tier 2. So just know that. That's why some of them have kind of different art or losing their art. That's not really that important to us because the key thing you need to know about the other rule about the augment is if you are offered a prismatic augment, everyone is offered a prismatic augment. Same rules apply to all the other ones. So the key thing you need to know, there's no variance between all the players on what tier of augments you're offered. If you're offered 3 prismatics that game, everyone's offered 3 prismatics, and you can get a prismatic at the beginning of the game, and you could get a silver augment at the end of the game. So those are the rules of the augments. I just wanted to be straight up with those. The other thing I want to say right before we go through all these, a lot of these augments will be very comp specific. The ones that are comp specific, I won't give a lot of information on. Like you get an innovator heart. Well, if you're playing innovators, take innovator heart. There are a few exceptions on which ones can be splashed in, and I'll try to talk about those when I get to them. But for the most part, the ones that are just the heart, if you're playing the comp, it's good to take. So let's just get into it. All right, stand behind me. At the start of combat, bodyguards grant 75% of their armor bonus to non-bodyguard allies directly behind them. Remember, guys, the numbers are subject to change. I think on PvE patch right now, it is 100%. But anyways, don't pay attention to the numbers. Those are the rules for this video. All right, so basically, if you're playing bodyguards, the 2 units behind, or the 2 hexes behind them in diagonals will be getting the bonus that bodyguards get. This is very strong. You just take it if you're playing bodyguards. A lot of times, if I'm offered this at the very beginning of the game, unless I already have a 2-star frontliner for another synergy, like protect, like let's say I already have a 2-star Garen and a 2-star Kassadin, like I'm high rolling or 2-star bruisers, then I won't take this. But if I have any bodyguards on my bench and I don't already have a 2-star frontliner, I usually will take this and just force in the bodyguards. It feels very good, and you can make like a very tanky build. A lot of times I like to play enchanters plus bodyguards. Late game, you can make a very tanky build. So I really like this, and great for builds that use bodyguards, like Jhin, like challengers. So just very good if you can play bodyguards. All right, featherweights. Your 1 and 2 cost units gain 45% movement speed and attack speed. By the way, this stand behind me is good at all points in the game as long as you're going to play bodyguards in your build. All right, featherweights. 1 and 2 costs gain 45% movement speed and attack speed. So this is going to be very good early game, obviously, because you're playing around a lot of 1 and 2 cost units. The other times you could take this is if you are playing a reroll build, and let's say you get offered this late game, and you played a reroll, like maybe you played like a reroll TF Ziggs Poppy, Garen, or Poppy, not Garen, Poppy and Darius build, then this would be good. If you're playing around 1 and 2 costs, then it's good late game as well. But other than that, typically you can take this early game, can be very strong. Dual rule, there are now 2 tyrants. So this is just if you're playing Imperial. So only take this if you're playing Imperial. Cool. Can be very strong. Cybernetic implants, your units equipped with this item gain 200 health and 20 attack damage. So this is just cybernetics from set 3. Very strong early and mid game augment. A little bit more difficult to use late game unless you have like some synergistic things with other augments, like the scrap and stuff like that. So, but typically you just take this early and mid game, can be very, very, very strong. All of the tiers are very strong early and mid game. Cool. Chemtech Overload, Chemtech's Explode, dealing percent maximum health as magic damage with enemies with 2 hex. Play this if you're playing Chemtechs. Pretty simple. Or Bruisers, can be good with Bruisers because you naturally fit in Chemtechs. Okay, built different. Your units with no traits gain health and attack speed. This is also one that'll go in tiers. This one is very, very strong early game because it's very easy to not have a lot of synergies and you just play 2 stars. So you basically, you just play 2-star units. You don't build synergies because this 300 health, 40% attack speed is very, very strong. Even just at the, weakest version of this augment is very strong. And usually this will give you, if you have 2 stars on your board and you're utilizing this bonus, this can grant you a really strong early and mid game. It's usually very strong until stage 4. But I have had situations on the PBE where I've utilized just the weakest version of this and gotten to a fast 9 board. But obviously PBE, your lobbies or whatever, your lobbies are crazy. But this is a very strong early and mid game synergy. Very, very, very good, or augment. Very, very, very good. Innovator Heart, your team counts as having 1 additional innovator. You take this if you're playing innovators, or maybe like if you get this offered at the very beginning of the game, if you already have like an Ezreal 2-star or something like that. This can be very good and can make it really easy. You can play around innovators the whole game, or you can just utilize this to have a very strong early and mid game playing around innovators. This is one that you could take and it doesn't lock you in on innovators. But yeah, take it if you want to play innovators, or if you have like an Ezreal 2-star or something and you want a really strong early and mid game to play around. All right, On Guard. First time an enemy is attacked by a challenger, they are disarmed for 3 seconds. So take this if you're playing challengers. Very strong with challengers. Other than that, obviously it's unusable. All right, Knife's Edge. This is going to be one that's in tiers. So at the start of combat, the first 2 rows gain attack damage. This is going to be obviously very good if you're playing a challenger comp. If you're like playing maybe you're playing like Warwick reroll, or maybe you're playing Fiora and Yone comp, like a Fiora Yone duo carry. You're playing Innovator challenger comp. This can be very strong on innovators, challengers, and also pretty decent on like a bruiser comp, because when you play bruiser comps, you have a really big front line and you get a lot of value from this. And you can also second row your Urgot if you want to play Chemtech. So very good with Chemtechs, bruisers, big frontline comps, challengers, very good. Innovators, very good. High-end shopping. Champions appear in your shop as if you're 1 tier higher. I do not think this is a tier 1 augment. It might not be this, but don't pay attention to the tiers. We're talking about how to use them. It doesn't matter what tier they are. So basically what this means is, like, let's say you're level 8. So let's say you're level 8. In your shop, you will have the odds as if you're level 9. I've actually utilized this synergistically with the one that allows you to go to level 10. I've used this with that, and I was level 10, and I believe they have a level 11 table for level 11 rolling odds. I think I was getting like 30% chance of hitting a legendary. It's pretty insane. This can be a very strong augment at all stages of the game for obvious reasons. It's not very good if you're trying to play a reroll build, because that can mess you up if you're trying to rerolling, but pretty good in all situations as an econ one. Okay, Clear Mind. If you have no units on your bench at the end of the round, you gain 4 experience points. I actually utilized this for the first time yesterday. And so I haven't used this one a lot because it's pretty difficult to use because you have to have a clear bench. The situations in which this is good, it's very hard to use early game because you're trying to build a comp still, right? It can be very good, but you really want to utilize this when you already have a strong board. So, or you already have your board pretty completed. So for example, I took this yesterday as my second augment right before stage 4, and I already had a fully upgraded board. So I was able to sell my whole bench, and through stage 4, I just didn't buy any units, and I quickly fast 8. I was level 8 so fast, and then I built a level 8 comp, and then left my bench clear, and that made me go to 9 very quickly. So it can be very good as like a very high tempo. It's very high tempo. And so if you're not comfortable, so if you don't already have a strong board, it's pretty hard to use. But if you don't have a strong board, alternatively, you can just roll to 0 to make a strong board, then sell the leftover units on your bench. It's very, very, very high tempo. So if you're not good at playing very aggressive, then this is not the augment that you should be picking until you learn how to play a little bit more aggressive with your gold and stuff like that. So you need to play aggressive whenever you get this augment typically. Or if you already have a very strong board, then this is very easy to use. Can be very strong. Basically think about it as you're getting gold every turn instead of experience points. It can be very good. So you can you can utilize, spend your econ because this is giving you free econ. All right, salvage bin. Gain a random completed item. Selling champions break apart their full items into components. So this is going to be one that is good every single game if you want it. You just get a completed item. So speaks for itself. When you sell champions, it breaks the components apart. This can be really awesome for like slamming early items, and then you can remake items as you sell like your item holders to help you be a little bit more flexible. But this can be really annoying when you're doing some pivots and you're selling. Now your bench is full of items, you get really dizzy. But overall, this is like one, if you don't know what to pick, you can pick it, and it's always going to be pretty strong. Item grab bag. Gain 1 random completed item and 1 reforger. This is very, very, very strong early game. It is strong at all stages of the game. It's an extra completed item, and you get a reforger. So if you don't like it, you can reforge. If I'm offered this, I pretty much take it every game at first augment, unless I'm offered something that is just so much better for my board. I pretty much take this every game first augment because you have 2 component advantage over the lobby. It's very strong, and you have a reforger. And most items are fine early game. So, and if your item isn't fine, just reforge it, and it gives you a lot of like clear direction how to play the rest of your game. So like, let's say you start at a tier and then you get offered a death cap. That's obviously a good situation. You are set now. You have a carry item, you have a tier, you are really good to go. You can start looking for frontline items, and you can naturally just get the rest of your AP items, right? Or, maybe you started a tier, you get offered an Infinity Edge, you reforge it, and now it's a death cap. Or you reforge it, and now it's a Warmogs. Like, it's hardly ever bad. So I really like this one. If you don't know what to take, you can take this one. All right, Pandora's items. Gain a random component at the start of each round. Each items on your bench are randomized. So the wording is kind of weird on here. If you put the item on a unit on your bench, I believe, at least this is how it seems to work right now. If you put an item on a unit that's on your bench, it doesn't randomize it. But if it's actually sitting in your little bin on the side, it will change every round. So I don't particularly like using this augment because I get a little too dizzy. I would not recommend using this augment too much if you are not super familiar with the patch, because it's just one more thing you have to think about every single round. But it can be very, very, very strong if when properly utilized at all stages of the game. It can be very good, especially early game. It makes it to where you can just, it gives you just clear direction. If you don't like your items, you just keep reforging them every round until they're the items that you like. So it can be very, very, very strong for getting like best in slot on champions. All right, Celestial Blessing. It's just a Celestial buff from set 3 if you played set 3, but your units will heal for a portion of the damage they deal. By attacks and abilities, excess healing is converted up to a shield of 300 health. It's very similar to like how Gunblade works, right? Cool. So this for your whole team. It sounds like really good, right? But when you actually look at the numbers, it's not that crazy. But this can be one that you just take when you don't know what to take. And Celestial can be very good if you have a very high damage build but very low survivability. This can give you that survivability that you need. So this is also one that you can take if you don't know what to take. All right, Exiles. This is one that's going to be good in every single comp if you don't know what to take, or most comps. Your units that start, it's not good in like a really big frontline comp because you really want your units on frontline. It can be a little bit harder to utilize there. But for most comps, this is one you can splash in. But your units that start combat with no adjacent allies gain 40% maximum health shield for 8 seconds. So what that means is you just have to make sure none of your units are touching, and you'll get this maximum health shield. Cool. Very easy to splash in. And this is one that is tiered as well. Makeshift armor. Your units with no items gain resist. I really like this one with bruisers because bruisers have a lot of health, but the problem that they have is they have no resists, and it's really hard to fit in resist synergies with bruisers a lot of times. Maybe you fit in 2 enchanters, but a lot of times you're playing like bruisers and chemtechs, it's kind of hard to fit these in. So I do really like this for that type of build. It's one that is also splashable in any build. And to best utilize this, you need to make sure that you have your items on like 2 or 3 units, right? So like, let's say you have 3 carry items. You have 3 carry items, 3 tank items, and you can put those carry items on one and then tank items on the other. It's not as good in like a duo carry build because you are splitting up your items a little bit more. But overall, this is one that you can just take if you don't know what to take. Very strong. Your units gain Stand United. Your units gain 3 or gain attack damage and ability powder per trait across your team. This is one that is generally good, especially if you're utilizing a 2-unit synergy comp. Like let's say you're playing like 2 sniper, 2 enchanter, 2 bodyguard, 1 cuddly. You know, like a bunch of small synergies. 2 clockwork can be very strong. But if you're playing a vertical synergy, if you don't know what vertical synergy is, like let's say like Chemtech, you're playing 3 Chemtech, then you're playing 5, then you're playing 7. For example, in that type of comp, this is not going to be very good for that, and you're going to lose a lot of value. So if you're going to play like a really flexible, very late game centric comp, this can be very good. Can be decent in the early game, but much better in the late game. Runic Shield. Arcana start combat with a shield equal to 400% of their ability power. Obviously, number is subject to change. I really like this one if you're playing Arcanist. So if you're planning on playing 6 or 4 Arcanists, can be very strong. Or, you know, even if you're playing 2 Arcanists, you can just get a really fat shield. Like let's say you're carrying a Lux, which has tons of AP. Hey, that's tons of survivability for your Lux. So that can be pretty nice. But generally, it's best to utilize with 4 and 6 Arcanist comps. All right, self-repair. When an innovation dies, it will become untargetable and repair itself if an innovator is still alive. Okay, so obviously this is really good with innovator. The best way to utilize this is if you have a tank in your innovator comp that you're able to stack. Like let's say early game you're stacking a Singed, right? You have like a Warmogs and I don't know, a Sunfire or something. And you're stacking a Singed. This is very good if you like are able to frontline your innovator. And you can basically just like rotate taking turns on who's frontlining. So like your innovator can be frontlining, can die. Your Singed now is main tanking. And by the time your Singed dies, your innovator is back to life again. It can be very strong to buy you a lot of time, buys you a lot of stall, can have really good synergistic effects with like Ascension and stuff like that. So very nice. Very nice when you're playing innovator. So think about that. Sniper's Nest. Snipers gain 8% damage per round. They've started combat in the same hex. So this is very obviously synergistic with snipers, but also very good with, Socialite. Very good with Socialite. Let's say you have a Socialite on the back line that you have your sniper sitting in the whole time. You can get a lot of stacking damage. So this is very good if you want to play like a Caitlyn reroll, if you want to play a Kog'Maw reroll. Obviously, it's very good late game. Like, so I'm talking about early game if you take this early game or mid game. Very strong if you're going to intend on playing Jhin. You can take this. It can be very good. Or, you know, you could just take this early game if you're just going to play a 2-star Caitlyn and then transition that into a Jhin. But, you know, just note that if you take this, if you take this early game and you're not going to reroll, then you really want to play Jhin. If not, you can just take this to be strong and you have a dead augment later. But, you know, getting this percent every round, you know, you finish a stage and you're already at the maximum threshold can be very, very, very powerful. Okay, so small. Yordles gain 35% dodge chance. So if you get this early, this is really insane early game. You don't take this late game if you're not playing Yordles. If you're playing Yordles and you get this late game, cool, awesome. But you take this if you're playing Yordles. A lot of times if you don't know what you're going to play and you have some Yordles on your bench and you get offered this on first augment, you can just take this and force into Yordles. Yordles is really easy to force into, and it's very strong with Yordles. All right, Twin Shot Heart. Your team counts as having an additional Twin Shot. Take this if you want to play 4 Twin Shots. It's usually very hard to fit in 4 Twin Shot when you're playing, you know, if you're playing like a GP, Urgot, Jinx, or Kog'Maw carry, it's typically pretty hard to fit in a Twin Shot, but it can be very strong playing 4 Twin Shots. So this is nice with that build. Okay, One for All. When your syndicate dies, they grant other syndicates 20 of both damage types. If you're playing Syndicate, it can be very good. I personally am not a big fan of. I play a lot of Syndicates currently. I'm personally just not a big fan of this one, but it can be very good, especially with if you're playing a Shaco centric comp. He deals a lot of AD, and he has some decent AP scaling that adds AD on adds more damage onto his ult. So this can be kind of nice on him, but you know, there's diminishing returns if you 3-star him, then he doesn't really need any more damage. So I don't know. I don't really particularly like it that much, but you know, maybe they'll balance it more, and maybe I'm wrong. But anyways, you just take this for playing Syndicates. Syndicate Heart. Your team counts as having 1 additional Syndicate. This is very strong when you're playing Syndicates because 7 Syndicate is a very strong synergy. At least at the time of me making this video. So if you're playing Syndicates, this can be very good. Can also make it very easy to make comps early and mid game to where you don't have to have like, you know, a random Shaco in your build to hit 5 Syndicate that doesn't really do for anything for your build other than gives you Syndicate. it can be very nice to just have the additional syndicate make it very easy. All right, Socialite Hearts. Your team counts as having an additional Socialite. This is very good at all stages of the game, and it's actually a very good early game augment. It's a early game augment because then you get the Socialite, and it helps you plan on what type of comp you want to play, because you'll see where the Socialite hex is because it changes every game. And so like you see it's near the front line and you have AD items. Well, you're like, okay, well now I know where the hex is, and you have it active. So you're like, okay, well I kind of want to play like Challengers or Urgot or something rather than play something like Jhin, you know, if you have the AD items. So it can help you make a game plan also just pretty strong. It already gives you the Socialite Heart. And then as soon as you hit a Taric, you can hit a Taric pretty early and get a double Socialite bonus. Very good. This is one of those ones you can just take every game if you don't know what to take when it's offered. Summon one additional Socialite Spotlight, that's Duet. This one is pretty hard to take early game. It's very good if you're playing a duo carry comp. Like let's say you're playing like Jhin, or not Jhin. Well, yeah, Jhin. Let's say you're backline and a Jace. You're playing like Jhin and Jace together, right? You have carry items for both of them. It's going to be very good if both the spotlights are on your backline. This can also be good if you have like a backline. Let's say the Socialite Hex is backline. Let's say you're playing Jhin, and then you have a frontline, and then it summons a frontline one, and you're playing Galio, you know? So you can play Galio. And Galio is a decent damage dealer that's also a frontliner. So that can be very cool for that Scion. Same rules apply. So this one is very difficult to take early game because you do not hit Socialites super early. Usually, you know, you don't hit Taric on stage 2 usually. You usually hit him on stage 3 or 4. So it can be very hard to utilize in the early game unless you already have a Taric. So this is much better as a mid and late game comp if you plan on playing Socialites. Also, just taking this can, like, you know, force you into taking Socialites because Socialites are very easy to run in most builds. Cool. Sniper Heart. Your team counts as having an additional sniper. Take this if you're playing snipers. It's very hard to hit 4 snipers, or very hard to fit in 4 snipers. Can be very strong if you do. So if you plan on playing Jhin, this can be very good for you, or if you're playing a reroll sniper. Scrap Heart. Your team counts as having 1 additional scrap. Be careful with taking this. This is very good for having a strong early and mid game. Can be very good for that. So for example, it can be very good for mid game. I really like it as a second augment. If you're already playing around like an Ezreal or Innovators or something like that, it can get you 4 scrap really easily. It can be very nice for that. But be really careful with taking this because a lot of times you want to just build a completed item anyways. And you build a completed item and like you take this, now you only have 1 leftover item component. You're playing 4 scrap and you're just not getting a lot of utilization. So just make sure you can actually utilize it when you take it. And if you're very prone to getting dizzy and you're not really like up to snuff on the patch, this can be a difficult one to play around. So just know that. Cool. But this can be one that you can use to play more of like a high tempo style. Very good early and mid game scraps are. All right, Scholar Heart. Your team counts as having an additional scholar. This can be good in any build because it's very easy to fit in scholars. But late game, you typically just want to have 2 scholars anyways, because Janna and Yuumi pretty much fit in like 90% of comps. They're very strong units, at least at the time you're making this video. So it's kind of hard to utilize in that situation. But if you're playing like a Heimerdinger carry comp and you can fit in a bunch of these, or you're playing a Lissandra carry comp and you're able to fit in 4 scholars or something like that, or if you're playing an Arcanist build and Arcanist or an Enchanter build, units that really want a lot of mana, then you can play around this and play like 4 scholars or something like that. So just know it's pretty strong in those builds, but as just a standard splash one, it's kind of hard to use just because Yuumi and Janna are so good. You already want to have them in your comp, so you can get some very diminishing returns there. If you take it, you know, you can utilize it with just Janna, but if you don't hit your Yuumi, but as soon as you hit your Yuumi, you'll start, you know, not getting any value. Cool. Protector Heart. Your team counts as having 1 additional protector. Take this early game if you want to play around Garen or Kassadin, if you already have one of those. Or mid game if you're already playing around them, or if you're playing around Imperials and your frontliner is Scion, so it's very good with Imperials and Protectors. Those are situations you take it. Mutants Unstable Evolution. Mutants randomly gain 1 of the following. On 2-star, they gain health and attack speed, or AD or ability power. These bonuses stack. Cool. So you just take this whenever you are playing mutants. You can take this. Very cool. Fun to play around as well. Mutant Heart, your team counts as having 1 additional mutant. So very strong if you're already playing mutants at any stage of the game. But the other thing to think about is if the specific mutant augmentation or specific mutant trait for that game is very strong. If you don't know how mutants work, it changes every single game. What the mutant is, what the mutant synergy is, it changes every game. So if it's one of the like OP mutants, for that game or for that patch. I mean, like for example, the patch I'm playing on, the strongest one is the Elderwood one. And so let's say it's the Elderwood one, you can just take this and kind of force in the mutants if you want, and you're comfortable playing that play style. It can be very strong, but other than that, you just take it when you're already playing mutants or plan on playing mutants. Okay, pirates. Mercenary units have a 50% chance to drop 1 gold when they kill an enemy. This is strong if you're playing mercenaries or if you're playing a GP carry for your early game. Oh, I have an alarm going off, guys. Sorry. All right. All right, cool. Mercenary Heart. 1 additional mercenary. This is very strong to take if you're already playing mercenaries, obviously, and get to like the 5 and 7 threshold, which is very hard to do normally. Also, you can just take this early game if you want to gamble. You know, you already have like an Alawi. It's pretty easy to hit 3 mercenary if you already have just 1. You know, you got to hit Quinn or MF or Quinn, MF, or GP. It's not very hard to hit those. So you can just take this and force in the mercenaries if you really want to. All right, Innovator Heart. Your team counts as having 1 additional innovator. If you're playing innovators, very good. Or you have a 2-star Ezreal, very good. So take it at any stage of the game if it makes sense for your comp. Imperial Heart, your team counts as having 1 additional Imperial. If you're playing Imperial, this is really good. It's very hard to fit in all of your Imperials because they're mostly carry units themselves. So it's very hard to fit in Imperial synergies. And in fact, I don't even touch Imperials unless I have this or the other version where you get an additional Imperial. I don't play Imperials without augments. It's very hard to run. Personally, I think it is. But anyways, yeah, just take it with Imperials. Enforcer Heart, your team counts as having 1 additional Enforcer. This one can be decent to splash because it's easy to fit in Enforcers because Jace can fit into pretty much every comp for the most part. If you take this early game, just make sure you find a Caitlyn or a Vi. It can be very good as a splash synergy trait. You don't necessarily have to play around Enforcers the whole game. It can be really easy to utilize. And if you still want to utilize a late game, you haven't at your Jace, you can just flash in a random Caitlyn. You know, you're playing Jhin, you can play Caitlyn with him to give him Sniper, and you get Enforcer for free. Or you can splash into Fiora until you get a Jace, because Jace pretty much works in every comp. And four Enforcer can be very strong if you can hit it mid game, and it's pretty decent late game. So I do like this one as just a splash one. Even if you don't plan on playing around 4 Enforcer, I do like it that way as well. All right, Enchanter Heart. Team counts as having 1 additional Enchanter. Very strong. 90% of comps fit in Enchanters. Can be very, 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 very good. And Enchanter thresholds are at 1 synergy. So it's like 1 Enchanter, 2 Enchanter, 3 Enchanter, 4, instead of like 2, 4. So it's pretty easy to utilize. I really like it. Not very good to take early game because Enchanters just don't have a whole lot of value. Most of the early game is AD damage, just based off of units auto-attacking each other is a lot of the damage in the early game. And it's hard to, you know, most of the Enchanters are high cost units, much better in late game, but this is one that you can pretty much splash in to almost every build. Very good. Clockwork Heart, your team counts as having 1 additional Clockwork. This is one that you can take in any comp. Clockwork is a synergy that works for your entire team. It gives them attack speed. Very strong with every comp. And every comp can pretty much fit in an Orianna. So it's not too hard to run. And if you're going to play Orianna Jhin, late game, if you plan on playing Jhin, then it's pretty easy to fit in 4 Clockwork, and that gives your Jhin some AD scaling. So this is one that you can take regardless of comp. It's not hard to fit in Clockwork. I like this one. All right, Chemtech Heart. Your team counts as having 1 additional Chemtech. Take it if you're playing Chemtechs. Very good. Challenger. Your team counts as having 1 Challenger Heart. Team counts as having 1 additional Challenger. Take it if you're playing Challengers. There you go. Bruiser Heart. Take it if you're playing Bruisers. This is one that you can splash in sometimes. Like you could take this to have a strong early game, even if like your game turns into you having to pivot to bodyguards. You know, like let's say you really wanted to play like Urgot with Bruisers, but it just didn't happen. You got better Jhin items. You only hit Jhin, or you only hit Yones or something like that. You don't have to keep playing Bruisers. This can just be a dead augment if you get an early game. Like late game, it could just be a dead augment, you know, like don't like ruin your whole game for a tier 1 augment. And also you can just splash in a Tom Kench late game, and you can and you can get the Bruiser synergy if you really want to. But overall, it's going to be much better if you're planning on playing on Chemtechs or Bruisers. Can take this in the late game if you're already going to play around like Mundo, Zac, Urgot, that sort of thing. Okay, cool. Bodyguard Heart, additional Bodyguard. Same rules apply to Bruiser, but a little bit less so. A little bit less so. Just take this if you're planning on playing bodyguards, or if you're already playing bodyguards in the early game. You know, if you're playing Jhin comp, you're playing Challenger comp, this is very good to fit in because you do want to play around like Braum and Galio, Leona, those sort of things. So just take it if you're playing bodyguards. Cutthroat Assassins, Mana Reave, the first unit they attack, increasing their maximum mana by 65%. So just Mana Reaves the unit that they attack. Very good if you're playing Assassins. Make sure you spread out your Assassin units so you get maximum value. Very strong. Your team counts as one additional Assassin, Assassin Heart. Take this if you're playing Sins. This is pretty hard to splash in because there's no like Assassin that's like so good at utility that you can run it in any comp, kind of, you know, like Diana in last set. Like you could just run her. Or Viego, you could just run her randomly, and then you could get value from this. There's not really that unit. Maybe Echo is the closest thing to that. So just take this if you're playing Sins. Arcanist Heart, take this if you're playing Arcanist. Now, this is one that you can actually utilize, like, for example, you can utilize this in a Chemtech build. You know, if you're going to play Victor as like a side carry or something, or you're just playing him as a synergy bot, you can get value because Arcanist actually works for your whole team at two star. The whole value is just for your whole team. So this is one that you can splash in. And even if you take this early game, you're not necessarily locked into playing Arcanist. It can just be a dead augment, but you can also utilize it by just playing a Victor who does have a little bit of utility in his build. So even if you take this, you're not locked in. So think about ways that you can utilize it just at a 2 synergy if you don't plan on playing Arcanist. Or if you're playing Arcanist and you end up just not hitting, you have to pivot to like an Enchanter focused build or something like that, you can still utilize it and it doesn't have to be a dead augment. So I like this one as it's like pseudo flexible. Okay, weak spot. Your units ignore 25% of the target's armor and healing, and reduces healing by 50% for 10 seconds. This is one of those ones, if you have AD items and you don't know what to take, you can take this and be very strong. A little bit stronger later in the game than it is early game, because early game people just don't have a lot of armor. There's not a lot of healing, but late game there's a lot of armor, there's a lot of healing for a lot of people, so you can take it late game. It's very strong. Okay, underdogs. When your team has fewer units alive than your opponent, your units regenerate 15% of their missing health every second. This is pretty good in Sins, because if you're playing Shaco, because Shaco does live a long time by himself. Like a lot of fights, Shaco just be like 1 versus 5 at the end of the fight. If you have a comp that is really like centered around one carry and that carry lives a long time, like maybe like Yone comp 6 can be very good. And I'm not certain if it works this way, but if it does, if you play like Colossus, you will have less units on your board than most people, because by nature of how Colossus works, where it counts as 2 units. I don't know if it counts as 2 units towards this, or if it just counts as 2 team size. I believe it's worded 2 team size. And so if it does just function as 2 units of team size, then this should work with Colossus by nature of like, if you're level 8, then you'll only have 7 units on the board if you're playing a Colossus. I believe it works that way. So it can be good with Colossus. It also be good if you're playing like a 1 or 2 cost reroll board and you're having to be stuck there rerolling. You're staying on level 5 while everyone's level 7, or level 6 while everyone's level 8 or level 7. Then you'll constantly be getting this bonus, which can be very nice. Very, very, very good. Okay, first aid kit. All healing and shielding received by your units are increased by a certain amount. This can be very good if you're playing an Enchanter focused build. Very strong. I really like Enchanter builds, so it's very strong. Good with Chemtechs, and there's one other one that it's good with, but I can't remember. It's going off the tip of my tongue. Very good with Yone, very good with Challengers, Chemtechs, and synergistic with a lot of other things, and Enchanter builds. Those are the ones that I wanted to. Ascension. After 15 seconds of combat, your units deal 100% more damage. Okay, this is not, I think it's 75% on PBE right now, but it does a percent damage. This one's pretty, I really like this one. If you have very good frontline items or you have very good frontline. For example, if you're playing like an Enchanter Bodyguard build, that's a very good stalling build. Like a Jhin focused build, you're already building for stall. Or maybe you're playing like a Seraphine carry build, very built for stall. If your comp can stall a long time, very good. Okay, phony frontline, gain 2 target dummies. This is very good if you, this is good on all stages of the game. You get some diminishing returns late game, but still good at all points in the game. But what you need to know is this can give you frontline when you don't have it. So for example, if you start the game with like a 2-star Caitlyn, but you just can't find a frontline, and Caitlyn is a unit that needs a lot of frontline, you're trying to play around Caitlyn, this can be a very good augment to take. Or Jhin, it's just more frontline. The other thing you can do for it is you can put it in backline to bait a blitz hook and basically make their blitz useless. He hooks a dummy and he sit there just fighting a dummy the whole time. I mean, can be very good for those reasons. Can be very good for that. One thing you need to know about this is you have to be careful with this, is can make playing Yuumi kind of difficult. So I don't like taking it for that reason, because I try to play around Yuumi most games. Because if Yuumi does attach to this, then it is not good, because you're shielding a dummy, which is not good. And then the way Yuumi works is she gains mana when her ally attacks that she's attached to, and so she will not be generating that extra mana. So be careful with taking that if you plan on playing Yuumi, or if you already have a Yuumi. So or if you do have a Yuumi, be careful with positioning this, because it can suck. Binary airdrop your units equipped with 2 items temporarily gain a random completed item at the start of combat. So yeah, if you have 2 items equipped, you get a random 3rd one. This is very good early and mid game. A little bit not as good late game, but can be good late game for sure. Can be good late game. You can still get some more value. But the problem with taking it late game is a lot of times late game, you just want to have the 3 items that you want to have on your carry and on your tank, you know? So you have 3 tank items, 3 carry items. You want those in those spots. You don't want to take the chance on the 3rd item, because having 3 carry items on your carry is very important. Or three items that is good for your carry on your carry is very important. So this is much better utilized early and mid game, but you still can get some value if you're willing to spread out your items a little bit. And or if the carry you're playing around has extremely flexible items, you can get a lot of value by getting a bunch of extra items. So this one is very nice, very good to play around early and mid game, and then has some niche scenarios for the late game. Okay, hyper roll. If you have less than 10 gold, each round gain a certain amount of gold. It is not 3 gold on the PBE right now. It is 2, because 3 gold is OP. Be very mindful of how this has changed in the balance. This is obviously very good if you plan on re-rolling a lot. Currently on the patch I'm playing on, it is 2 gold, so it sets you at 20 gold. At 3 gold, this was absolutely broken. You would take it every game. You just roll to 0, and you're just sitting at 30 gold, constantly having board strength. This is really good if you need board strength, and you're scared of losing all of your money. You know, let's say you lost early game. Let's say you lost early game and you get this for your 2nd augment. Well, this gives you permission to really roll it down. This really gives you a lot of position to roll down. So if you need a lot of board strength, you can take this mid and late game. But other than that, if you take an early game, you do want to kind of hyper roll it down to get a lot of board strength early, and you can utilize that, utilize this synergy. But I played around a little bit with this. It does synergize with certain ones, like the one where you can't gain. There's an augment that we're going to talk about where you no longer can use gold to level up. Very good synergistically with that one, obviously. But yeah, this one is a little bit tough to use, but it's very good if you need board strength and you don't want to lose all of your econ. This can help keep your econ, and you can just full send it to get you board strength. Okay, dominance. After winning your combat, gain 1 bonus gold for every 2 surviving units. So this is obviously good if you have a very strong board. Be careful with using this, because just because you had a strong board, if you take this, you are basically down an augment. So it is hard to have a strong board. So because everyone else took an augment that ups their board strength, or at least half of them did. So you really need to be in a very strong spot to take this, but it can be very good if you're high rolling the game. So only take this when it looks like you're ahead, or other people look pretty weak, and you can still beat them even though they have an augment that ups their board strength. Calculated loss. After losing your combat, gain 2 gold and a free shop refresh. I would be very surprised if this was still a tier 1. I love this. If you get this early game, it is so good. You just intentionally play a weak early game, and you're basically gaining 4 gold every round, because you're getting 2 gold and you're getting a free shop refresh. Very strong if you're comfortable playing a losing early game or a losing mid game. For example, the way that I have utilized this best is if I get this for first augment, I will just force Yordles and just play Yordles for the early game just to even generate more gold. We'll be doing those free shop refresh, leveling up my Yordles, and I might just play Yordles that game, or I'll pivot out and I'll just play a really strong mid game. So mid game, I won't get value off of this anymore, because I'm winning now, because you can't lose every stage of the game, obviously. But I'll intentionally lose early game. It just gets such a huge econ advantage on everyone else. And then the rest of the augments I take the rest of the game, I'll take augments for board strength, because I'll just try to win mid and late game. And so if you win all of mid game, and you should win all of mid game if you utilize this correctly and you know how to build a bunch of different comps, this can be very good for that. So what I usually do is I lose early game, I win mid game, and then by the time I get to late game, I just have a really big econ advantage, and I've taken board strength augments after this. And so I'm just like way up tempo than everyone else. So I really like this one. So take that and play weak early game. I really like it early game. It can be decent mid game. If you already had a strong early game, it can be decent mid game. If you just take this and try to utilize it mid game, and you have a weak mid game, or you had a really weak early game, and you try to utilize this mid game, you'll probably just bleed out and lose. So it's much better early game. But it can be something that's something to note is you can take this late game if you do have a lot of HP, but you don't have a lot of gold. So you need this to create a strong board for the late game. So you can just sack a few rounds to make a lot of gold, to make a stronger board for like stage 5, stage 6. I mean, okay, tier 2 ones. And these ones that are blank are ones that keep getting changed in the balance. Okay, cool. Woodland Charm. At the start of a combat, your highest health champion creates a whatever health copy of themselves, excluding items, obviously. So this is just Woodland from set 4 or set 3, I mean. I don't know, whichever one, you know it. Cool. So it creates a copy. This is very good if you need more frontline, or you need a comp, or you're playing a comp that needs a lot of stall. So for example, you're playing like Enchanters or you're playing Jin. This can also just be one, which are comps that you need really big frontline. This is also one you could just take if you don't know what to take. It can be generally good, but it's much better if you're playing a comp that needs more frontline. Not very good if you're playing like bruisers, you know, you have like insane frontline. It's not gonna be as good in this scenario. Cool. Or it's good if you're playing a unit that has like an insane ability, like you're playing a Scion. It can be really good to have 2 Scions, right? So it can be good in that situation. All right, Thrill of the Hunt. Your units heal for some health on kill. No, it is on kill, not on takedown. So only one unit will get the bonus. This is really good if you have a very high damage, low utility build, low sustain build. Can give you that sustain that you need. Like for example, you're playing Jin, you want to play like full damage. You don't build a BT. You know, you don't want to build a BT, and you can just take this and you can get a lot of sustain on your Jin. So that can be very nice, like in that scenario. It can be very nice with challenge. It can be very good in any scenario, but that was just an example. Cool. Especially high damage builds. Sharpshooter. Twin shots, ranged attacks, and abilities can bounce once, dealing 40% less damage. Very good with sharpshooter, or very good with twin shots. Oh my god. Very good with twin shots. This is gonna confuse the shit out of me. Very good with twin shots. If you're playing around Kog'Maw, Jinx, or Urgot, can be very good. I took this last night on an Urgot carry build, felt pretty good. All right, Payday. After winning combat, you gain 1 gold for each surviving syndicate. Take this if you're playing syndicates. So if you're already playing around like a Darius TF early and mid game comp, can be very good early and mid game. Only take this late game if you are already playing around like a Shaco or a Kali or something like that. Can be very good in that scenario. And you just try to make as tanky build as possible. Can be very good. You know, to keep all your syndicates alive. Like stacking a Darius early game with this can be very strong. Or building like a Gunblade on your TF or something with a stacked Darius, keep both of them alive, very strong. So basically every round that you win, both of them will still be alive and you'll go. Only play around syndicates, somewhat difficult to utilize late game, much better early and mid game. Okay, Spellblade, Arcanist, attack, deal bonus magic damage equal to 40% ability power on hit. So this is good if you're playing like a Zeke stacking Arcanist build, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, and that seems like weird, like Zeke stacking, that has been a build forever. You know, a lot of newer players don't understand that like attack speed generates mana. So if you're playing like an attack speed Arcanist build, can be pretty good. Currently the patch I'm playing on this doesn't feel that great. Or if you're playing like a Rage Blade on your backliner, it can be okay. Backliner Arcanist, or if you're playing a lot of Arcanist, can be okay. But I don't know, it's decent Arcanist. Currently I don't take it that often. I don't really like it. But I'm sure there'll be patches where this is very strong. Take it if you're playing Arcanist if you want to. All right, the first time Assassin drop below 60% health, they briefly, this Smoke Bomb, briefly enter stealth, becoming untargetable and shedding all negative effects. So this is very good with a Kali, obviously super good in Sense, but very good with a Kali because that's a champion who needs to, it feels like you need to slam QSS on a lot, stuff like that. But it can shed all negative effects. So it's basically like if you play Divine in set 4, you know, Divine would release you from the effect. So it kind of works like that. It makes you untargetable, kind of like when Shaka ults. So it can be very nice if you're playing Sense. Okay, cool. Junkyard. Every 3 combat rounds with Scrap trait active, gain a random component. It's as broken as it sounds. Pretty much only good early and mid game. Late game, you typically want to take an augment that ups your board strength because, you know, there's not much game left to generate this, right? But you could take this if you have a lot of health and you're playing and you already have like a Jinx or something. You know you're gonna play around. You know that you're gonna place 2 scrap units, and you have a lot of health that you can like lose some rounds by not having an augment that ups your board strength. Because eventually this will up your board strength. So it's gonna be very good, but much better early and mid game. Instant injection. Chemtechs are now additionally trigger their bonuses at the start of combat. So if you don't know how Chemtech works, after they go below a certain health threshold to get all the stats and health regeneration, stuff like that. This would be very good if you're playing Chemtechs or you're playing around bruisers. Very, very, very strong. Or you're playing Urgot carry. Very strong. Cool. Featherweights, your 1 and 2 cost units gain 65% movement speed and attack speed. Obviously, this is good if you're playing a 1 and 2 cost reroll build. Also, very good early game. So, but yeah. So you can just like force into a reroll build if you want to, or you can take this later in the game if you are already playing around a reroll build. Like let's say you're playing reroll, TF Darius, which is the build I like to play a lot. It's pretty fun to me. Then this could be good, right? And also you can take it early game just to be strong, or you can take it to force into a reroll build early game. But you can also just take it to be strong and just not get value off of it later in the game and make it a dead augment. But that's a little bit more advanced. So yeah, if you're playing reroll, very good. Or if you just want to take for board strength and then pivot out later, that's fine too. But just know that you're gonna have a dead augment later. Okay, cool. Cybernetics implant, so you gain health and attack damage. This is just the tier 2 version of the other one. Very strong early and mid game, and then a little bit more niche, can be very strong late game as well. Cool. Chemtech Overload. They explode on death, dealing maximum health. With the 2Xs, this is just a tier 2 version. Very good. Very good with Chemtechs. Very good with bruisers. You can take this if you're playing that. Cool. Built different. Your units with no traits active gain health and attack speed. Very good to take early game. A little bit harder to utilize late game. Very good mid game. If you get one of these and you're able to utilize it, very strong. So yeah, cool. All for one. When an ally dies, they grant the tyrant 40% of their maximum health. This is all for one. If you're playing Imperials, very good. If not, don't take it. Why spending? Gain 2 experience points when you refresh your shop. If you're playing a reroll build, very nice. If you're playing a 1 cost reroll build, this is difficult to take because you will level up too fast in order to hit your 1 cost. But if you're playing a board like a 2 or 3 cost reroll build and you're rerolling in 6, it's not the end of the world if you go to 7. The only reason why people don't go to 7 to roll for 3 cost reroll builds a lot of times is because it costs a lot of money. So this saves you a lot of money. Can be very strong in a reroll situation, but do note that when you're doing this, you're not upping your board strength, and when you play a reroll build, a lot of times you are sacking rounds to gain board strength later. So you're just double investing into that. So it can be strong early in mid game, but just be mindful that you are lacking a board strength augment when you take this. But it can pay off in the long run to give you more board strength. Sunfire board. At the start of combat, burn all enemies for a percent of their maximum HP for a certain amount of time, and reduce their healing by 50%. Very good if you are lacking board strength. This is probably the easiest, like, I need board strength, you put it in. So if your board just sucks, grab this. Or you're playing like a single carry build that really doesn't have enough damage. Like, say you're playing Jhin. A lot of times Jhin doesn't have enough damage. If you don't have like a Jace doing some damage, some Orianna, stuff like that, you're very good to add on, especially on a solo carry build. But if you don't know, just grab it. There's so much healing in the late game. It can be very nice. And then obviously early game, this just deals a lot of damage. Very nice, but very, very, very good at all stages of the game. All right, shrug it off. Bruisers regenerate 2% of their maximum health each second. Play if you're playing bruisers. Lifelong learning. Scholars that survive combat permanently gain 5 ability power. This can be good early game, especially if you're going to play around like Yordles or something, and you're going to you can pivot into like a Heimerdinger. You can put like Ziggs into a Heimerdinger carry. It can be very strong. Or if you're playing like a Lysandra carry build, those are situations where this is good. I'm sure there's going to be other niche scenarios where this is strong, but typically it's going to be better early and mid game because obviously this stacks throughout the game. Much harder to utilize late game. Cool. Knife's Edge. Your units start combat. Units that start combat in the first 2 rows gain 50 attack damage or a certain amount of attack damage. Very good on challengers. Very good on like if you're playing like a really big frontline comp, like 6 bruisers. Just giving them extra AD can be really, really nice. It's kind of like playing brawlers in set 4 where they gained AD. Very nice. And then the other thing that it does, or if you're playing like challengers as well. So if you're playing like Fiora Yone, you get a lot of value. If you're playing like a reroll Warwick build can get a lot of value. You're playing Urgot, you can just second row your Urgot, get a lot of value. So in those situations, you can get a lot of value. All right, cool. March of Progress, gain 4 experience per round. You can no longer use gold to gain experience points. This one is hard to use. If you get this at the beginning of the game, it is so OP. It is so OP, but it'll take you until late stage 5 to hit level 8, even if you take this for first augment. So just know that. If you take this, you have to play a reroll build. And there are other gold generations, like the hyper roll and stuff like that, can be very synergistic with this one. But I took this early game one time, and I was playing in a pretty high elo lobby. I was playing against other challenger players on the PBE, and it was the freest game of my life. I ended up second placing, but like my game was so free. I had so many 3 stars. It was so easy to play around. If you get it early game, if you get it mid game, it is still usable. If you want to play very high tempo, if you're comfortable playing high tempo, like you already want to roll it down, or you already have a bunch of XP points pushed in towards level 8 or something like that, it can be good, but just be really careful with this one. Very hard to utilize late game as your third augment. Very difficult to take. It takes a lot of XP to get to level 9, and there's just not that many rounds left if you take a late game. So much really good as first augment. A little bit more niche second augment, pretty unusable third augment, at least at the time we make this video. Feels that way. Hired gun, gain a mercenary emblem. Play this if you want to force mercenaries. You're already playing mercenaries. Help you at your thresholds. Can be very good. All right, cool. Gain a mutant emblem. Take this if you're playing mutants, or if the mutation is very strong in that game and you're comfortable forcing into it, you can take this. Gain a protector emblem. Strong if you're playing protectors already, or if you're playing Imperials, you're playing around a Scion, can be good. Scholar emblem, same scenario. Good with Scholars, good with Arcanists, good in Enchanter build. You can take it there. Scrap emblem, same rules that I talked about earlier. Be careful with taking Scrap emblem early and mid game. You need to be able to play around it, or all that good stuff. So just be a little bit careful with this. But yeah, you can take it if you're already playing around Scraps, and can make a very strong early and mid game. And if you end up just playing Scraps late game, I don't think there's a late game Scrap comp right now, but can be good in that scenario as well. Cool. Deadeye, gain a sniper emblem. Very good if you're playing around snipers in the early game, and then good if you're playing Jin in the late game. Can give you a lot of extra damage because it is very hard to hit in for snipers in the late game. Can help you fit in for snipers. Okay, Shady Business, gain a syndicate emblem. Very good if you're already playing around like TF and Darius early game, and then can be very good synergistically with the other syndicate stuff, like the gold you generate. The gold generation one can be very good with that one, right? But yeah, play if you're playing syndicates. Can be very good. 7 Syndicate is very strong, so be very, very good to help you get in 7 Syndicate. And I don't believe you can hit 7 Syndicate without having an emblem, so can be very strong. Cool. I played a game last night where I had 7 Syndicate, and I built a Syndicate spat. Freest game of my life. Anyways, Academy emblem. Play this if you're playing Challengers, or if you're playing around Academy, right? Because Yone is an Academy, and you can fit in a Leo really easily. You can fit in a Yumi pretty easily. So if you're playing around, Challengers or Academies, you can take this. Cool. Or if you're playing around Bodyguards, I guess you could take that as well, but you'll get a little bit less value. Okay, Arcane, gain the Arcane emblem. Take it if you're playing Arcane. This is one that is a little bit more flexible, that you can just take it just to get the 20% AP bonus. You just play Victor or something late game. That can be fine, but just know that you're down like an Augment. You're exchanging another Augment for 20% AP for your whole team. So just think about that whenever you take it if you're not going to be playing Arcanist. All right, cool. Hidden Blade, gain an Assassin emblem. Take it if you're playing Sins. Very hard to use as a utility because, again, we don't have anything like Diana. Echo is the closest thing to it, but it's not as good. Okay, Safety Vest, gain a Bodyguard emblem. Play if you're playing around Bodyguards, or you can take it early game and just force into Bodyguards if you want. Go to all stages of the game if you're planning on playing Bodyguards. Okay, Bruiser, same rules apply. That apply to that one and what we talked about before. Gain a Challenger emblem. Good with Challengers. Pretty self-explanatory. Kimtech emblem, good with Kimtechs, good with Bruisers, good with Twin Shots, usually. Gain a Clockwork emblem. This is one that you can splash in pretty easily. I do like it. You can splash it in. Good with Jin, all that good stuff. Really easy to splash because Oriana can fit in most comps. Imperial emblem, good with Imperials. Again, like I personally don't play Imperials without some type of Imperial augments, especially an Imperial emblem, because a lot of the Imperials are useless when you're only carrying one of them. Cool. Makeshift armor, very good with Bruisers. Just a very good general one. Same rules apply to the last one. Trade Sector, gain a free shop refresh each round. Much better early and mid game. You can utilize this late game, but typically late game, it's better to not have an econ based thing and have a board strength one. But if you're really poor, you can take this in the late game to give you a lot of money. But it's really good early and mid game for re-rolling, and it's also good to just have really good board strength. Can be very good for that. Okay, Stand United. So this is if you're running a lot of 2-unit synergies, late game can be very strong. If you're playing vertical synergies, don't take this one. Celestial Blessing, a general good one. It's just the buffed version of the other one. If you don't know what to take, you get offered this one. You have a very high damage build. Can be very good. Cool. Runic Shield, Arcanist start with a shield, with a big shield. It's just tier 2 version of the other one. Take it if you're playing Arcanist. Make a very tanky Arcanist. Cool. Exiles. This is just the Exile buff. That was the other one. So remember, just make sure none of your units are touching. This is a very good general one to take. Not as good if you're playing a really big frontline build because it's very hard to space them out. But other than that, very, very good in general. Okay. Gold Reserves Mercenaries deal 1% more damage per 1 gold you have. So this is good, and it stacks up to 60%. If you are playing a reroll mercenary build, you're playing around a Gangplank plus Quinn carry or something like that, or MF carry, can be very, very, very good. Other than that, you probably shouldn't take it. Ardent Censer, allies healed or shielded by enchanters gain 15% stacking attack speed for the rest of combat. Can be very good with Jin, can be very good in enchanter-based builds, like enchanter bodyguards builds. So plan on playing a lot of enchanters, can be very good. But even if you're only playing 2 enchanters, Janna ults, heals your entire team. That's really nice, right? 15% attack speed, really nice. Very good with challengers, right? So I'd say it's pretty good with challengers, Jin, and enchanter-based builds, because you can fit enchanters in most of your build, and Janna will give your whole team value pretty easily. Armor plating. Colossus become invulnerable for 2 seconds for the first time. Their health drops below 60 and 30. Those are the 2 thresholds. You're playing Scion carry, very good. Other than that, if you're playing a Colossus as your front line, or you're playing, if you're playing any of the 3 Colossus as your front line, can be very, very, very strong. Or you're playing Scion carry or Cho'Gath carry, very, very, very strong. Okay, Titanic Force. Your units with more than 1,200 maximum health gain attack damage equal to 4% of their maximum health. Very good with bruisers. Very good with very good with bruisers, Chemtex, because Chemtex uses a lot of bruisers. Very good with Colossus. If you're playing those, very strong. Okay, Metabolic Accelerator. Your tactician moves faster and heals 2 health at the start of each combat. This is very good if you had a really weak early game or really weak mid game, or you have a really weak early game and you want to take it mid game, or you can take it early game and just plan to have a weak early game and just play like open fort to generate econ. One thing to note is if you intentionally play a weak early game and you play this, like you're trying to play around this to build econ, just note that it's not going to work. Normally when you open fort, you gain a lot of money and you get first choice at the carousel. Just know that your carousel, you're not going to get as good a carousel choice because you will have more health. But it's very good to stay healthy and generate econ. This is like an econ generation one. You can take it mid game to just gain some health, back. If you had a really weak early game and are going to play a strong mid game, you can take this to gain some health back, help you with your positioning. But just know that if you do take this one, you are not taking a board strength one. So it may not work as well as mid game as you think it might if you played a weak early game, but pretty good early game if you're willing to open fort. Okay, Ancient Archives, game 1, Tome of Traits. You guys should know about the tomes from last set if you played last set. So what this does is that it pops up a tome on your bench, you sell it, and you gain traits. It tries to give you traits based off of your the board that you currently have. It's actually the board that you had that fought in the previous round. So just know that whenever you take it. It will try to give you augments that work or traits that work for your board, but it is based off of your previous combat. Unless they change that at some point. That is how it was set up in set 5. So just know that. The other thing I want to say about this is you can hold this on your bench. You don't have to use it immediately, especially if you're about to do a pivot. Like let's say you have items to play AD carry and you don't know if you're going to play like Jin or Yone or Fiora, right? You don't know if you're going to play those. So you would really want to roll it down, find which one you're going to play. Like let's say you hit the 2-star Jin and you hit the 2-star Jin, then you let a combat play out with your 2-star Jin and you have your board set up for your Jin board. You let a combat play out and the next round you sell it, and now it'll give you traits that are better for the board that you currently have. Whereas if you take it before you roll down, let's say you get a challenger emblem from it, you're like, okay, well I'm gonna try to play Yone and Fiora. and then you roll it down, you only hit one Yone, you don't hit anything else, and you hit a 2-star gen. And now you're just like, well, shit, you know? It can make it a little bit more difficult. So you see what I mean. All right, rich get richer, gain 10 gold, and your maximum interest is increased to 7. So that means that if you have 70 gold, you will gain 7 gold interest per round, which you can't normally do. You only gain, 5 for 50, no matter how much gold you have. This is really strong. Really strong if you take an early game. Like if you just take it early game at the very beginning of the game, very strong. It already ups your econ generation. And you basically just run a weak early game just to hit this econ threshold, and you make a strong mid-game comp, and then a lot of times you can go fast 9 with this, or get level 8 super. You can get like level 8 on like stage 4 too. I've had a combination of augments, like the one where you gain XP when you level up. I've been level 9 on stage 3. I mean, I was really stacking rounds to do that, to just kind of limit test. I have gotten level 9 on stage 3 with the combination of this augment and the one that gains you bonus XP when you level up. How crazy is that? I've done that before. I think that was before they nerfed the other augment, but still, you get the idea. Very strong. You can take this mid game as well if you're already at 50 gold, but do not take this if you are really weak and you need to roll and you're really unhealthy, or you already rolled and you have no gold. Don't take this. Just take something else. There's better econ generation stuff for you if you don't have a lot of gold or you're very weak. Then don't take this mid game or late game if you're in that situation. But if you're already strong, or you have a lot of health and you have a lot of gold, it's gonna be very good to just continue the snowball. But if you take an early game, this is just insane. If you take an early game, it can give you a lot of generation. All right, now to the juicy ones, to the tier 3 augments. All right, this is just Thrill the Hunt. Tier 3, gain health when you get killed. Very good on high damage comps. You know the deal. All right, share the spotlight. All adjacent allies to a spotlight at the start of combat gain 100% of its bonuses. This is very good as a mid-game and late-game augment. It's very easy to fit in socialites. Very strong. A little bit more difficult if you take it early game because, again, you just don't get socialites very good. And there's a lot of socialite augments. So you can synergize these with those. But very easy to fit in these late game. Very good with frontline based comps, right? Challengers, people who want to all be kind of in one spot can be very good. Cool. All right. Golden ticket. Each time your shoppers refresh, you have a certain amount of chance to gain a free refresh. Very good if you're re-rolling, synergistic with other stuff. Kind of difficult to take late game unless you have a lot of gold and you're weak, and or you don't have a lot of gold and you need the extra gold to roll. Like you don't have a lot of gold and you don't have a lot of board strength, can be very good in that situation. It can also be very good if you do have a lot of gold and you are about to roll a lot of gold. It gives you more chances to hit it, right? So, but just know if you're going to take this, it's a prismatic, and at least it looks like it's prismatic right now. It might change. And there are a lot of prismatics that give you a lot of board strength. So just be cognizant of taking this late game if you do want to take it, that you're not getting a board strength augment. So, but can be very strong in the right circumstance. Okay, featherweights, tier 3, 1 and 2 cost, units gain 90%. Wow, I mean, okay, cool. Movement speed and attack speed. So very good if you're playing a 1 and 2 cost reroll build, same rules apply. Or if you get this early game, you can just force into it. At a prismatic tier, it is difficult to just try to use this as a tempo augment to get to late game. I mean, it will get you to late game if you are pivoting out of 1 and 2 costs, but it'll probably make it very difficult to play for top 2 because you'll have a dead prismatic augment in the late game, but you could still utilize this to get a top 4, even if you're going to pivot out, but very good if you're rerolling 1 and 2 costs. Okay, cool. Cybernetic implants. Just the tier 3 version, very good early and mid game, a little bit harder to utilize in late game because late game you don't like to spread out your items. Much better early and mid game, this augment is. But can be strong in the right circumstances late game, of course. Okay, Chemtech Overload, strong if you're playing Chemtechs. This is just the tier 3 version. Built diff, very strong if you're playing, if you get this early and mid game, can be a lot harder to utilize in late game. If you get this early game, yeah, it's so good. Getting this early game and just playing around 2-star 1 cost, 2-star 2 costs with no traits can get you to a fast 9 or fast 8 pretty easily. But just know that it will be a dead prismatic augment late game a lot of times because the late game you do want to play around synergies. But I mean, theoretically, you could build a comp where you utilize this the whole game. It's just it's a very unique play style. So if you're comfortable playing that unique play style the whole game, you're comfortable doing that, can be very, very, very good the whole game. So yeah, I've seen people make it work with playing like a Kai'Sa with no synergies or something. Just playing legendaries with almost no synergies can be very good. But a lot of the legendary units have their own unique traits that activate, like Jace, like Yumi, so they don't get those things. But you know, that's fine. Those are really good units if you just want to play like a Kai'Sa with no synergies. Can be very good. Cool. Broken stopwatch, 6 seconds into combat. All enemies and non-clockwork units are frozen in time for 4 seconds. I believe QSS does ignore this. But yeah, this is good if you are playing like a Jhin comp, because your Jhin and Orianna will just be free hitting for 4 seconds. That's crazy. And what Jhin needs most is stall. So if you're playing Jhin carry, very good. In other situations, not as good. But yeah, if someone's casting their ult, by the way, it will lose their mana, and a lot of times enemies will lose their ult, lose the value of their ultimate. So this can be very good. Like for example, if Janna starts channeling her ult and then she gets frozen, I believe it'll just cancel her ult. So very good if you plan on playing around Jhin or Ori. I've taken this where I wasn't sure if I was playing Jhin or playing Yone or something, and I've taken this and just like boom, I'm playing Jhin and just forced into it. Can be very good. All right, Innovator Soul. Your team counts as having 2 additional Innovators. This is splashable. This is splashable late game with like a Jace and you can get a free Innovator, but it's not as good. It's good if you're already playing Innovators. It can get you to that Dragon Innovator. It can be very strong. So if Innovators are in meta, this can be very strong to get to that Dragon tier. Very good. Knife's Edge. This is just where you gain attack speed or attack damage in the first 2 rows. Very good with Challengers. Very good with Bruisers, like a big frontline comp. And can be decent on Urgot as well. Other than that, it's not as good. Cool. High Roller. Gain 2 loaded dice. Take this. It might be 3 loaded dice actually. I think it is 3. Take this if you don't have a lot of gold and you need a lot of upgrades, right? So you can take this, hit your upgrades. You can take this if you're playing a reroll build, and you can take this just to hit your reroll, right? So it has very niche use cases. So just make sure you fit into use cases like you really need a lot of upgrades, you don't have a lot of gold, or maybe you're rerolling and it can save you a lot of gold by doing this instead of having to reroll, and then you can use this for tempo. Can be very good as a tempo thing for like reroll builds. It can also be very good to if you don't have any gold, to basically inject gold into your game. It can be very good, but just remember, if you're taking this, it does look like it was downgraded on this patch, but you know that is subject to change. Just remember that you are down a board strength augment, that you're taking this to hit upgrades for board strength. So just note that it's the right situation if you're taking Academy Soul. Your team counts as having 2 additional academics. It's good if you're playing academics, or if you're playing around Yone or Lux or something like that, can be very good. Cool. Level up. When you buy experience points, you gain 4 additional experience points. You can now reach level 10. I believe this has changed to 2 on the current patch I'm on, because at 4, this was hands down the best augment you could possibly get in the game if you got it early or mid game. It was so bonkers insane. I'm telling you, I hit level 10. I hit level 10 like on 5-1. Like it is crazy if you get this early or mid game. Even in its nerf state, if you get it early and mid game, it's crazy. Gives you such good tempo. So it can be very, very, very strong if you're willing to play a very up tempo play style. You're willing to play very aggressive. Can be very good. Cool. Item grab bag 3. Gain 2 random completed items and 2 reforgers. Crazy. It's good on all stages of the game. You're up 2 items. You take this early game, you're up 2 items the whole game. Like that's crazy. A lot of these prismatic ones are going to be crazy. Strong regardless of comp you're playing. You get 2 reforgers, so you can figure it out. Okay, Band of Thieves gain 2 Thieves gloves. So this is good. This is just generally good, but this is really good if you don't have any frontline items, because a lot of people will just like only grab carry items the whole game, and you get to the late game, you're like, I can't buy any time for my Yone and Fiora, So this can be really good. Just toss on frontliners, because even if your Thieves Glove roll aggressive items, the dodge chance is still just really good on frontline versus AD comps or attack speed based comps. So this can be very good if you don't have frontline items, but in general can be strong. Exiles, this is just a tier 3 exile, so this is always good, except for remember the scenarios I said before, except for when you have a really big frontline comp and it's very hard to space them out. This can be generally very good. Stand United, Tier 3, remember, if you're playing two unit synergy comps, can be very good. If you're playing verticals, don't take this one. Okay, makeshift armor, very good. Very good in most scenarios. Just remember, don't spread out your items. It's very good in bruiser builds and single carry builds, especially because you're not spreading out your items too much. Celestial Blessing, in general, this is good. Gives you 20% Omnivamp. I'm not a huge fan of this one, but if you don't know what to take, it can be a good one to take in all builds, especially high damage builds, low utility builds. Cool. Very good in Chemtex as well, because that is going to be a low utility. Okay, Runic Shield 3. So the shield that you get on your Arcanist, you're playing Arcanist, can be very good. Make a tanky Arcanist. Syndicate Soul, your team counts as having 2 additional Syndicates. Very good to hit your 7 Syndicate. If you're playing Syndicates, this is very, 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 very strong because 7 Syndicate is a very strong synergy. So if you're playing Syndicates, very good. Cool. If you're not, probably don't take those. Cool. All right, Socialite Soul. Your team counts as having 2 additional Socialite. That's really strong in most builds. So really good to splash in. If you don't know what to take, you get offered this. You can take this just to splash into 2 Socialite, especially if the Socialite Hex is beneficial to you. Make sure you know where the Socialite Hex is before you take this, because you can be playing a Gen carry comp and then it's a frontline Socialite Hex and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not as good as, it can be fine. You can play like a Galio and get some value on him, but like, it'd be much better if you're playing an actual frontline carry. So, just be careful with taking that one, but it can be very good. Sniper Soul, gain 2 additional sniper. Very good with Gen. Pretty obvious. Cool. Scrap Soul, you can have 2 additional scraps. Remember, be careful with taking scrap, but this can be very good mid game. And there's currently not a late game scrap comp, but if there is one, be very good. Cool. And to play 6 scraps, because yeah, be careful with taking this one. I don't really like this one. Careful. Scholar Soul, very good. And Scholar build, if you're playing a Scholar focus build, Enchanters or Arcanists, same deal. Protector Soul, if you're playing Protectors, you're playing Imperials, take this, very good. Mutant Soul, your team counts as having 2 additional mutants. If the mutant augment is OP, like let's say it's like the Omnivamp one, gives your whole team Omnivamp, so easy to fit. Or if you're already playing mutants or you're playing around Bruisers or Chemtex, very good to take. Cool. Mercenary Soul, your team counts as having 2 additional mercenaries. You can take this even if you're playing mercenaries, very good to hit the crazy mercenary thresholds. Like you can hit 7, you can hit 5 now. This is one that you can take early game and just force mercenaries. You just play 1 Alawi and you have 3 mercenaries, right? It's very easy to fit in mercenaries, but just know you are down a Prismatic Augment if you're taking this for Econ. So just know that. Much better if you're actually playing around mercenaries than just taking it as a splash thing to take early game, but can be good early game. And then good if you're already playing mercenaries. You wouldn't take this late game if you weren't playing around like a GP carry or something like that. You'd get a lot of you'd lose a lot of value. Innovator Soul, your team counts as having 2 additional innovators. If you're playing around innovators, very good. Yeah, it's not very good to splash in late game. Very good if you're already playing innovators. Okay, Imperial Soul, team counts as having 2 Imperials. Extremely good in Imperial comp. Again, I will say this every time. Imperials are very hard to play without Imperial emblems and stuff like that. I think they kind of suck. But it's very good if you can get these free things. Enforcers, you gain 2 Enforcer souls, 2 Enforcer emblems, or you just count as having 2 Enforcers. Very good to splash in. I mean, 2 Enforcer works by itself. And then late game, you can just play, you can play Jace plus 1, right? You're playing Challengers, so good. You're already playing Fiora, and then you just add in Jace, or you can just play Caitlyn as a spot holder. Very good as a splash rate, especially if you're playing very good as a splash rate, but very good, especially early game if you already have a Caitlyn and a Vi. Very easy to play, playing around Bruisers, playing around Challengers, or playing around Jace can be very good. Cool. Enchanter Soul, your team counts as having 2 additional Enchanters. This is much better mid and late game because Enchanters are very easy to fit into your build. Extremely good if you're going to play a bodyguard focused build. Very, very good to make it tanky. If I get this and I have AP items, I basically just force an Enchanter build from there. I love playing tanky builds. So very good if you're playing a bodyguard Enchanter focused build. But in general, can be pretty decent because you fit in Enchanters pretty easily. But it's much better in that Enchanter bodyguard focused build than other builds. Clockwork Soul, 2 additional Clockworks. Very good if you're playing Jhin. But in general, this is good as Splash because you just get the Clockwork synergy for free. And then if you play an Orianna, you just have to splash in a Jhin or a Zillion. Not that hard to do in most comps. So you can get a lot of value. But if you're playing Jhin, this is extremely good because you just get this for free because you're already going to be playing Jhin and Orianna. So now you get 4 Clockwork for free. Scales really well on Jhin. All right, cool. Chemtech Soul, if you're playing Chemtech, good. If you're playing Bruisers, good. Challenger Soul, if you're playing Challengers, good. Cool. Bruiser Soul, if you're playing Bruisers or Chemtex, good. Or if you're playing around Jinx, good. Playing around Tom, good. All right, anyway, sorry. All right, Bodyguard Soul, if you're playing Bodyguards, a Bodyguard Enchanter build, or you're playing like a Gen build that uses Bodyguards pretty well, or you're playing Challengers, who wants to utilize Bodyguards, it's gonna be very good. Assassin Soul, if you're playing Assassins, play it. If you're playing a Kali focus build, or like playing like a Kali Syndicate, this can be good as well. So Syndicate and Assassin builds are good, as long as in the Syndicate build you're playing around Shaco or Kali. Good. All right, cool. Arcanist Soul counted as having 2 additional Arcanists. Good an Arcanist. Cool, we're good to go. Cram Session, after casting their first ability, Academics restore 80% of their maximum mana. This is good if you're playing an Academics. It's very good on Yuumi. Yuumi has high mana cost. Leona has really high mana cost, but overall, I'm not a huge fan of this one unless you're playing a lot of Academies, a lot of Academics. But it is really good on Yuumi, who does fit into every build. But I don't necessarily like this a lot as a splash synergy just for Yuumi. I don't really like it. But yeah, it can be good if you're playing Academics. Cool. New recruit, it's just a fawn. You just gain a fawn or a tactician crown. That's what it's called now. Cool. You just gain a tactician's crown. Basically, can be good in all scenarios. Just make sure you can properly utilize having one more in your team, and that you can't just better utilize something that gives you better board strength, because you're taking this and your board strength will be in the fact that you have an extra unit. Make sure you're able to actually utilize it and you actually have a unit to play, or there's a possible unit you can play in your comp. Just make sure that taking this is better than something that can give you board strength for your comp. Okay, Portable Forge, open up an armory and choose 1 of 3 unique artifacts crafted by Ornn. So these are the Ornn crafted items from set 4. I think set 4.5. I think he was only in 4.5. But regardless, you get it. These are Ornn items. If you didn't play that set, Ornn crafts these like really OP items that are basically like 200% efficiency. Really strong items. Very strong in all scenarios. And just when you open it up, just read the items if you don't know what to do. I'm not going to talk about the whole Ornn table. That would take me a while. But the Ornn items are very strong. I played a game last night where I was playing a Jace carry. I had a Runaan's Hurricane, a Last Whisper, and a Trinity Force. Was really strong. First place of the lobby. Okay, cool. Windfall. Gain gold based on the number of augments you currently have. This is subject to change, obviously, but 20 gold, 25 gold, 30 gold. This is pretty good early game to generate a lot of econ. You can take this late game to help you get to fast 9. Just be really careful taking this, because you are down a board strength augment if you're taking it late game, which I really think board strength augments are very good late game. Take this if you're like really close to being able to fast 9, and this is just what you need to push you into that threshold, because if you're able to go to fast 9, you will get insane board value from getting legendaries. Or you can take this if you have no gold and you really need upgrades, but just be really careful with taking this one. It's a little bit more niche. And then early game, you can take this just to generate some really good econ. I just think there's some better econ traits than this one. So just be a little careful taking this one, but it can be very good. All right, we're at the end. Unless this website dropped off an augment. If they did, let me know. I'm much happier with this video than the one I made on every champion. This set is so complicated, guys, that these videos are taking me hours to make. I mean, this one is an hour and 15 minutes going right now. That's crazy. So if you made it all the way to this point in the video, please let me know in the comment section. I think it's so cool whenever I read and I'm just like, wow, somebody listened to me talk for this long. It just, just makes me feel good. And I love teaching you guys. Obviously, I make YouTube videos because it's beneficial to me, right? Very clearly it's beneficial to me. I'm trying to build a business, but around my YouTube channel, right? And around my Twitch channel. But I do truly love teaching. That's what I used to do before I did this. I was a lifeguard instructor for a long time, and I loved it. I love teaching people. So it really does make me feel good when you guys comment down below saying that you learned something, or saying you got value from this, or you watched the whole thing. It really does make me feel good. I'm not just saying that to gain value in the YouTube algorithm, even though it does help with my engagement stats. Just saying. Anyways, if you guys want more of me, I stream on Twitch pretty much 5 days a week or so semi-daily. And yeah, follow me on here. I make TikToks and shit like that too, just at TrajanTFT. But I also post them on YouTube. If you already follow me on YouTube, I post those TikToks. So, and you can follow me on Twitter, guys. I post on Twitter every day, and I only have 50 followers, and I have 2,000 YouTube subscribers. So if you use Twitter, I'd love to see you there. I post some funny stuff, and I post some updates, and I post my goals and what I have planned, and all that good stuff. So if you guys want to follow me on any of the socials, that'd be cool. But if not, I just appreciate that you came by and watched the video. Anyways, that's going to be it, guys. It was a long video. I'm so tired of talking, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Have a good day. I appreciate you.